Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum class. I welcome you to English grade 6 video lessons. This is your instructor Zahmid. I hope that you're doing well. Now, this is our lecture number 1B and we are dealing with unit number 3, Captain Muhammad Sarwar Shaheed. You have already gone through the lesson and covered so many SLOs, the competency of grammar, and now let's explore our students' learning outcome for this video lesson. So in the competency of grammar, our students' learning outcome is recognize and use personal pronouns as subjective, objective, possessive cases, and demonstrative, interrogative, reciprocal, and reflexive pronouns like this, that, one another, and myself. So, my dear learners, if you remember in the previous video lecture, we covered the first half of this SLO, and now it's time to cover the other half that was left. Now, we'll be looking at demonstrative, interrogative, reciprocal, and reflexive pronouns. Now, let's get them one by one. Now, before that, you will be looking at this vertical linkage to relate this with the previous grade SLO that you have already covered. I hope that you can recall most of it, because we are going to do a very interesting brainstorming session today, and you will be making sentences using these pictures. Look at them, make sentences looking at these pictures, use pronouns instead of nouns. So you will be using pronouns in this one and recall your concept of using pronouns instead of nouns. Now let's talk about pronouns. Here, let's talk about first reflexive pronoun. So this is also available in your book, page 20. Reflexive pronouns are pronouns that refer back to the subject of the sentence or clause. Now, they either end in self, as in the singular form, or selves in the plural form. So, first thing that we learned is the reflexive pronouns are referring back to the subject that is written in the sentence. Now, if it is a singular one, it will be ended with self. If it's a plural form, it will be ended in selves, because since it's a plural form. Now, let's look at this table with singular reflexive pronouns. In the singular form, we use myself, yourself, himself, herself, or itself. Now, for plural forms, we use ourselves, yourselves, and themselves. We use a reflexive pronoun as our direct object when the object is the same as the subject of the verb. Let's look at an example. He bruised himself in the school. Now, this reflexive pronoun is a singular pronoun. It's ended with self, not selves. It's referring back to the subject, that which is a pronoun he. Now, this is how we use a reflexive pronoun. We also looked at reflexive pronouns in both singular and plural cases. You can learn them all by heart so that you can use your reflexive pronouns accordingly and efficiently. Now, moving on, let's look at different scenarios, different ways of using the reflexive pronouns. Now, with the preposition by to show that someone did something alone or without any help. So in this case, we write this preposition by before the reflexive pronoun. As you can look at here in this example, she walked home by herself. So she did something, an action, alone or without any help. So this is why we will be using the preposition by before this reflexive pronoun. Now, as an indirect object, when the indirect object is the same as the subject of the verb. In this case, let's look at and clarify it with an example. we've brought ourselves something to eat. Now, ourselves is actually referring to the subject we have. Now, it's an indirect object when the indirect object is the same as the subject of the verb that we can see here. Now, in this situation, as the object of a preposition when the object refers to the subject of the clause. Now, let's look at an example. They had to cook for themselves. Now, this preposition is used before this reflexive pronoun, which is also, we know that it's in a plural form since we used selves. So this plural form reflexive pronoun is actually referring to the object of a preposition, this preposition, when the object refers to the subject of the clause. Now, all these three different scenarios are clear when we use preposition, and we use prepositions and then also in all these different scenarios. Now, after seeing reflexive pronouns, either they are used in singular or plural, and also when different prepositions are used before the reflexive pronoun. After this, let's take up demonstrative pronoun. Demonstrative pronouns like this, that, these, or and, those point to specific things, as in, for example, those are boys. So this is actually demonstrating and pointing. Now, we know that we use that and those when things are a little further from us, and we use this and these when they are near us. Now, in this situation, those are boys. Now, those, it's a demonstrative pronoun because it's demonstrating, it's making you look at a direction. So all these, this, that, these, and those point to specific things that you are actually referring to or want your listener or reader to actually see in a direction which is either further or near you. Now, those are boys. It's a very good example of a demonstrative pronoun. Now, let's look at this example. This is my grandma. Now, this is used to something singular that is near to the speaker both in space and time. As I told you earlier, this and these all are used when the things are near you to which you are demonstrating. So, moving on, let's look at that when the things are a little further, when we want to demonstrate or refer to or show direction, we use that to refer to something singular that is farther away from the speaker both in space and time. For example, my mom read book last week. So by reading these examples, we know that first the demonstrative pronoun is used for singular form, and second thing is that it is used, the demonstrative pronouns used are that, and we know that it's a little farther from the speaker or the writer. Now that it is clear, let's talk about interrogative pronoun. Now, let's recall that interrogative pronouns are used to ask questions. For example, what is that? Who did that? Who did it? Now, these pronouns are interrogative pronouns, and there are many others. I want you to think about them and note them down. Now, whenever we are using questions in both our speech and writing, most probably the first word is actually your interrogative pronoun. Now let's talk about reciprocal pronoun. Reciprocal pronouns refer to a situation where someone or something performs an action on others and receives the same action in return. There are two reciprocal pronouns in English grammar, and both of them consist of two words. These reciprocal pronouns are each other and one another. For example, the kids spent the afternoon kicking the ball to one another. Now, let's analyze this example. One another is a reciprocal pronoun, and the boys here, the kids, they're actually doing this and receiving the same action, hence we use this reciprocal pronoun. Asif and Haris were talking to each other. Since the action is both sending and receiving and it is the same, we use each other. When there are more than two people, two persons involved, we use one another, and when there are just two of them, we use each other. So these are just the two different reciprocal pronouns. Now we have covered all the left pronouns in our lecture number 1B. Here is a simulation video for your better understanding about all these demonstrative reflexive pronouns. Moving on with our classroom activity. This is from page 22 of your book. The activity is about, let us say your partner tells you, my family went on a trip this weekend. To get more details about his or her story, you work in pairs and take turns being the speaker and listener. As the listener, you would ask follow-up questions using the 6 W's question words: who, what, where, when, why, and how. For example, who did join you on the trip? Now, and also, when did you leave for the trip? Now, you remember the concept of turn taking in oral communication, and you will be doing this activity. Note the instructions down, and I hope that you enjoy doing this. We have your worksheet attached in the resources. Now moving forward to the homework. This is from your book, page 22. Choose the correct type of pronoun for each statement. Now these are multiple choice questions. Now after learning about the pronouns that we did in our lecture, you can easily use them correctly in both your speech and in your writing. We are here at the end with our resources, skill sheet, question bank, worksheet, lesson plan, and PowerPoint presentation. At the end, thank you for listening to this video lesson. This was about pronouns, and we saw demonstrative, reflexive, and reciprocal pronouns. Till the next video lesson, Allah Hafiz.